Kel Kellogg of the Fish Sniffer magazine here, and today I'm bank fishing for trout at Collins Lake Reservoir. It's late March and I thought I'd go over the basics of bank fishing for rainbow trout with you. It's pretty simple. We're going to be fishing bait today. I've got everything I need in this backpack. I've got bait in there, some worms, lots of dough bait, salmon eggs, marshmallows. We'll talk about that stuff later. But I thought right now I'd show you the basic rig. So let me break out some gear here. I've got all the terminal tackle I need right here in this two-sided Plano box. The back side I've got some lures and flies. Again, we'll talk about those in a minute. And on the front side I've got all my sinkers, snaps, and things like that. I'm using a Cousins Tackle fiberglass spinning rod. It's got a very soft action. I'm using an Abu Garcia Cardinal reel, and it's spooled with 10-pound braided line. Now you might be wondering, why use braid for trout fishing? Why not use braid? It casts great, it lasts 3 or 4 times as long as monofilament, it's finer than 6-pound test, and it just gives me a lot of strength. I'm going to be using this with a 10-pound fluorocarbon leader, so I'm probably going to catch pan-sized trout here, but if I catch a big trout, I'm ready to battle that fish. In reality, I could probably land a 15 or 20-pound striper on this rig, yet it's light enough that I'm going to have fun catching pan-sized trout. So let's rig up. Pull some line out here. The first thing I want to do, I'll open up my box here. I'm going to be fishing floating baits off the bottom. So I need to set up a sliding sinker rig. Set that down there. The first thing I'm going to put on my line is a bullet weight. Some people use egg sinkers. I prefer the bullet shaped weights because they flow through the water better and they don't get snagged as much as a round bullet weight, or a round egg sinker rather. So, getting old, it's hard to hit that little hole, but I got it. So that is on my line. I'm going to follow that up with a bead. The bead is just going to protect the knot that I'm about to tie from the weight. So I've got a weight, a bead, a small swivel. Now there's a lot of fancy knots you can use. You can use a Palomar or whatever. I'm just going to use the old school improved clinch knot. Been using this knot for 35 years. It works great for applications like this, and it's simple to tie. Pull that down. You could trim that tag end off, but it's really not necessary. So I've got my weight, I've got my bead, I've got my swivel. Today I'm using Trilene 100% pure fluorocarbon and 10-pound test. This reflects light at the same rate as water, so for all real purposes, it's invisible to the fish. A lot of guys use 4-pound test, even 2-pound test for trout. It's not necessary with fluorocarbon line. They can't see this. Why not use some strong tackle that you can land a big fish on? So let me break out my Leatherman here. I'm going to cut off a piece. Back in my younger days, I would have just bitten this off, but the dentist doesn't like that anymore. So now, the leader length is always an issue, and sometimes a short leader works well, other times a long leader works better. Here today at Collins Lake, I know I'm not dealing with a lot of weeds on the bottom, so I'm going to go with a medium length 24-inch leader, something like that. If the water is very cold, I've done well with a leader as short as 12 inches. So I'm just putting this through the swivel. I'm going to tie another clinch knot, improved clinch knot. Very simple. Pull this through. Tighten that down. Now I know that's 36 inches, so I'm going to go about that far. I'll leave a little bit extra because I'm going to tie a knot here. And I'm going to tip this with an Eagle Claw laser sharp octopus hook. If I can get one that's not tangled up. Oh, here we go. Now, I'm using a red hook. You can use black hooks, bronze hooks. It doesn't matter. The hook's going to be inside the bait. Even when I'm using a worm and the hook is exposed, it still doesn't matter. So I like red hooks. I'm going to use a red one. Sometimes I schnell these leaders at home, and I actually go through the trouble of tying a schnell knot. But I'm going to let these trout eat. They're going to be deeply hooked. I'm going to end up cutting the hooks off anyway, probably. So once again, I'm going with that improved clinch knot. Keep things simple, quick. It's easy to tie, and it works well. Now, once I get baited up, I'm going to be casting into the lake here. What you always want to do when you're bank fishing for trout is vary the distance of your casts. And we'll talk a little bit about the spot I've selected to fish from here in a moment. But vary the distance of your cast. That's going to vary the water depth that you're fishing. I expect the fish to be in the top 15 feet of the water column today, so I'm not going to cast out terribly far. So let's have a look at this. This is the basic rig for bank fishing when you're fishing bait. Catch up with that sinker there. Let's review. You got your main line coming down to a bullet weight with a bead, a swivel, a section of fluorocarbon leader, and a small hook. When you're bank fishing, this rig will catch 90% of the fish. You can put an inflated worm on here, salmon egg and marshmallow, floating dough bait. Whatever bait you choose to use, it's going to float up off the bottom. Trout spend most of their time cruising along the bottom, particularly a hard bottom like this. You can see it's all rock around here. So we'll bait this up. I'm going to bait up with some dough bait to start out with. We'll pitch it in. We'll see what happens.